The cameras flashed. The crowd froze. And just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession. A grieving mother, a tragic loss, and a media firestorm that no one saw coming. Welcome to StarScope Report. Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame in this deep dive. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Because today, we are bringing you directly into the center of the shocking aftermath following the death of 36-year-old actress Hayden Panettiere.
Right, it's such a heavy situation.
It really is. And we are pulling from a massive stack of sources for this one, including reports from NBC News, the Daily Mail, Variety, U.S. Magazine, and even official World Health Organization media guidelines.
Oh, those guidelines are actually super important here.
Definitely. Because our mission today is to unpack the heartbreaking, highly public media feud between Hayden's estranged mother, Lesley Vogel, and prominent media figures like Gayle and Megyn Kelly. But more importantly, we want to explore the intense, often crushing pressures of child stardom and just how society consumes grief.
It is a profoundly heavy topic today. I mean, while the headlines you might be scrolling through are hyper-focused on this bitter back-and-forth feud, the celebrity drama is really just a vehicle for a much larger sociological phenomenon.
Yeah, totally.
Like, if you picture the visual backdrop for today's deep dive, it's this glowing cityscape reflecting the harsh glare of the Hollywood spotlight. Because the real story beneath all the noise is about the mechanics of public mourning. It's about how a family's deepest trauma is consumed, packaged, and judged by the masses as if it were scripted television.
Exactly. And to understand how it spiraled into a media spectacle, we really have to look closely at the tragic catalyst itself.
Right.
So let's set the scene based on the reports. It was Sunday, August 16th, 2026, Greenville, South Carolina. And the details are heartbreakingly cinematic, but entirely real.
Yeah, just devastating.
Hayden Panettiere is found unresponsive in an apartment by her on-and-off boyfriend, Brian Hickerson, and his brother, Zach.
Wow.
Yeah. First responders arrive on the scene. They attempt CPR for cardiac arrest, but tragically, she is gone. Now, authorities reported that Narcan, the emergency treatment used to reverse opioid overdoses, was found at the scene.
Which obviously changes the entire context of the reporting.
Right. They noted no initial signs of foul play, and the investigation is ongoing. But that specific detail about the Narcan immediately frames how the public and the media started piecing together her final hours.
Exactly.
But then, within days of this unimaginable loss, her estranged mother breaks her silence. And she doesn't issue your standard sanitized Hollywood PR statement.
No, far from it. She released a statement to NBC News that essentially threw a grenade into the grieving process. Yeah, so Lesley Vogel stated that her daughter was amazingly talented, but then she took a really sharp pivot. She claimed Hayden, quote, sadly lost her way and went down the wrong path.
Oh, wow.
And crucially, Vogel blamed a, quote, toxic individual, which was widely understood as a direct reference to Brian Hickerson for enabling her daughter.
So what does this all mean? I mean, I'm struggling to understand Vogel's timeline and logic here.
Right. It's confusing on the surface.
Because releasing a statement like this right after a tragedy is like turning a eulogy into a cross-examination. Why do it? If my child just passed away, my very first instinct wouldn't be to draft a hit piece on their partner for national news.
No, of course not.
It just feels completely counterintuitive to the grieving process we expect. Unless, is this about controlling the narrative before Hickerson could get out in front of it?
Well, it is tempting to view it as a calculated PR move. But if we connect this to the bigger picture and look at the psychology of the situation, it's likely something much more raw.
Like what?
It reads less like media strategy and much more like an uncontrollable manifestation of maternal guilt and long-standing rage. Because the history here is incredibly complicated and fraught.
Right. They had a really difficult past.
Exactly. Lesley Vogel wasn't just Hayden's mother, she was her manager. And that dynamic didn't start in Hayden's teens. It started when Hayden was just 11 months old, appearing in toy commercials.
11 months old. I mean, you literally don't even have the cognitive ability to form memories at that age, let alone consent to a career.
Exactly. The pressure began before she could even speak. Hayden wrote extensively in her memoir, This Is Me, A Reckoning, about the severe emotional toll this dynamic took on her development.
Yeah, that book was so eye-opening.
It really was. Because when your parent is also your manager, love and approval often become unconsciously intertwined with performance and compliance.
Wow, that's heavy.
She felt that acting and performing perfectly was the only way to secure her mother's love. So by the time Hayden was 19, the pressure cooker just exploded. She ended their professional relationship, and the two had been largely estranged for years leading up to her death.
That context changes everything. I mean, in a recent interview, Hayden even admitted she was terrified of parenting because of what her own mom did to her.
Right, it's generational trauma.
But then you have Brian Hickerson's role in all of this, which adds an incredibly dark layer. Based on the reports, he has a highly documented history, including a 2021 domestic violence conviction involving Hayden, for which he served actual jail time.
Yes, that is a huge factor here.
And he and Vogel openly despised each other. Hickerson had previously gone to TMZ and publicly called Vogel, quote, one of the worst people I've ever met in my life.
So put yourself in Lesley Vogel's shoes for a moment, recognizing that really messy reality. You are a mother who has been pushed out of your daughter's life. You are watching from the sidelines as your daughter repeatedly returns to a relationship that your family views as profoundly dangerous. Sources say Hayden had just reconnected with Hickerson 2 weeks before her death in South Carolina.
Only 2 weeks. Wow.
Yeah. So when you view it through that lens, Vogel's statement wasn't just a sudden, unprovoked attack. It was the catastrophic boiling over of years of profound, helpless frustration.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Because when a tragedy involves substance abuse, which was signaled by the presence of Narcan, there is an overwhelming psychological urge for the surviving family to find a tangible villain.
Because if you can blame the boyfriend, you don't have to face the terrifying reality that addiction is a multi-system failure. And maybe you don't have to look too closely at your own role in her childhood trauma.
Exactly. It's a defense mechanism.
But Vogel's statement broke the seal on public commentary. Once she pointed a finger, it essentially gave the media permission to do the exact same thing to her.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's not even the wildest part. Wait till you hear the explosion that came from national television next.
Yeah, the reaction was instantaneous. Vogel's statement sparked massive debates across social media. But it didn't stay confined to the internet.
Not at all.
It migrated directly to morning television, where the anchors completely abandoned their usual restraint.
The backlash was severe. Over on CBS Mornings, Gayle King actually reads Vogel's statement live on air. And her response is stunning.
It really was.
She looks at the camera and says, "Thanks, Mom, for nothing." King argued it was deeply unseemly to use the days after Hayden's death to remind the world of the trauma Vogel allegedly caused, especially when Hayden cannot respond.
Right.
And her co-host, Vladimir Duthiers, agreed, pointing out that Hayden spent years publicly acknowledging her own struggles, and a mother's instinct should just be to mourn quietly.
What we're seeing here is the media acting defensively on behalf of the public's parasocial relationship with Hayden. To the public, she was the beloved star of Heroes in Nashville. But the criticism didn't stop at morning television. It crossed entirely different political and media divides.
It really did. It's worth noting that this backlash crossed all lines. Like, to give you an idea of the scope, and I just need to make explicitly clear to you right now, that we're just sharing these raw quotes neutrally to show the media landscape. We aren't taking a stance or endorsing these viewpoints at all. Conservative commentator Megyn Kelly went just as hard on her podcast.
Yeah, she did not hold back.
Kelly said, quote, "You failed at your job. You got an F as a parent. You made a bunch of money off of your daughter. You failed. You're a loser."
That is just wow.
I know. Kelly even went as far as to compare Hayden's life to Marilyn Monroe's, arguing that childhood trauma and industry pressure inevitably lead to these tragic outcomes.
It is a stunning escalation of rhetoric. You have major media heavyweights acting as judge and jury over a grieving mother in real time.
I mean, could this be the biggest scandal of the year?
Mm-hmm.
The media acting as judge and jury in the court of public grief? I'm just captivated by the sheer psychological whiplash of this.
It's dizzying.
We've completely bypassed empathy and gone straight to character assassination on a national broadcast. I mean, I understand the impulse to defend Hayden's memory, but the media thrives on this kind of outrage. Why do they do it?
Well, it's complicated.
Like, why take a complex tragedy and turn it into a gladiatorial match?
Simply because of the structural mechanisms of modern media. Morning television and political podcasts thrive on moral clarity. The format simply does not allow for the messy, gray, uncomfortable reality of addiction and generational trauma.
Right. They need it to be simple.
Exactly. They need a hero and a villain to keep the audience engaged through the commercial break. When Lesley Vogel pointed a finger at the boyfriend, she inadvertently volunteered herself as the primary villain.
Wow, that's such a good point.
And what's fascinating here is how directly this entire spectacle violates established global protocols.
Oh, right. You're talking about the World Health Organization media guidelines from our source gag. I read those, and they felt completely at odds with what was happening on screen.
Absolutely. The WHO guidelines are not just suggestions. They are built on decades of psychological research regarding how the public processes celebrity deaths.
Okay.
There are strict warnings against exactly this type of coverage. The WHO explicitly warns the media to avoid sensationalism, to avoid oversimplifying a tragedy, and critically, to never boil a complex death down to a single cause or a single villain.
Which is exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
Vogel is boiling it down to the boyfriend, and the media is boiling it down to Vogel. It's like a mirror of blame.
It is a complete systems failure. The guidelines state that tragic deaths, especially those involving suspected addiction or mental health struggles, are never the result of a single factor.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They are the culmination of biological, psychological, and environmental pressures. Yet we are watching the media actively sensationalize this family feud. They are demanding a villain because nuance doesn't drive ratings.
No, it definitely doesn't.
And it is the exact oversimplification the WHO warns against because it gives the public a false, dangerous understanding of how mental health crises actually happen.
If you're loving these Hollywood twists and the deep psychology behind them, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead. But let me ask you this. When the media goes on the attack with that kind of ferocity, how does a family even process it?
It's incredibly difficult.
Doesn't the sheer weight of a national broadcast completely short-circuit their ability to actually mourn?
It forces them into an immediate defensive posture. When a public figure passes away, the media abhors a vacuum. If there isn't a neat, tidy narrative available, they will construct one.
Right.
In this case, the narrative quickly became the toxic stage mother. But grief is not a monolith. People do not act perfectly or adhere to a PR script when their world is shattered.
Exactly. And later in the deep dive, we'll talk about the shocking twist nobody saw coming. A grieving mother's furious counterattack against the media elite. Because Lesley Vogel did not just absorb this criticism and retreat.
No, she did.
She went on the offensive.
She did. But to truly understand her reaction, you have to understand the agonizing emotional landscape she is standing on right now.
It's just so much loss.
It is. Lesley Vogel is a 70-year-old woman, and with Hayden's passing, she has now lost both of her children in the span of just 3 years.
God, that's unimaginable.
Hayden's younger brother, Jansen, died in 2023 at the age of 28 from an enlarged heart. So Vogel is not just grieving one child, she is processing an unimaginable, compounding, catastrophic trauma.
Yeah.
And she is being forced to do it under a global, highly critical microscope.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Vogel breaks her silence again, this time securing an exclusive interview with the Daily Mail.
Right.
And she fires back with everything she has. She explicitly labels the criticism from Gayle King and Megyn as shameful and unconscionable.
Strong words.
Yeah. And she points out a glaring fact. Neither of these media titans reached out to her privately to offer condolences or ask for context before slamming her on their massive national platforms.
She said something incredibly telling about the mechanics of grief in that interview, actually.
Oh, yeah. What was it?
She said she doesn't have the luxury right now of being weak because she has to stay strong for Hayden. She essentially stated that her own emotional processing, her mourning, will have to wait until she finishes what she views as her duty to her daughter's legacy and the ongoing investigations.
And part of that duty, in her eyes, involves aggressively pushing back on the narrative of Hayden's final moments.
Exactly.
Because Vogel publicly questioned the timeline and the inconsistencies of Brian Hickerson's account. Remember, Hickerson's brother Zach claimed they found her and performed CPR. Vogel is demanding a closer forensic look at those details.
It's a lot to take on.
It really is. It's just this vivid, tragic image. A mother actively fighting a high-stakes public relations battle, questioning a timeline of events, demanding answers, while simultaneously trying to plan her daughter's funeral. I have to admit, it's hard to reconcile as an outside observer. I mean, is she avoiding her grief by fighting, or is this combative stance the only way her brain knows how to grieve?
Well, it is highly likely that fighting is the only coping mechanism she has left. This raises an important question about the impossible, paradoxical situation of the child's star parent.
Yeah, That's such a tough dynamic.
Because the trauma here isn't just an isolated event in Greenville, it is deeply generational. If we look at Hayden's own journey as a mother, the cycle of trauma becomes painfully clear.
Oh, right.
In 2018, Hayden made the agonizing decision to give up custody of her own daughter, Kaya, to her ex-fiancé, Vladimir Klitschko, so she could focus on rehab in the United States while Kaya lived in Ukraine.
Wow.
She was battling severe postpartum depression, alcoholism, and opioid addiction. She famously once said she didn't know where the alcoholism ended and the postpartum began.
That is just heartbreaking on every level. She recognized she couldn't be the mother she wanted to be, ironically, because she was terrified of repeating the toxic cycles her own mother initiated. She stepped away to protect her child.
Exactly. And that is the messy, painful, unglamorous reality of addiction and the long-term effects of Hollywood pressure.
Yeah, it's rarely pretty.
But the public, and by extension the media, demands a perfect grieving process. We want the family to issue a polite, sanitized statement with a nice black and white photo. We want everyone to behave with quiet, dignified restraint.
Which is just not realistic.
Not at all. That expectation completely ignores the deeply fractured, chaotic reality of a family that has been chewed up by the entertainment industry for over 3 decades.
Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next as we wrap up this deep dive. Because listening to this timeline, looking at the generations of pain, I can't help but feel like the audience is part of the problem. Well, we want the drama, we want the answers, we want the heroes and villains, and we consume this real-life tragedy like it's the season finale of a prestige television show.
That brings us to a really crucial final thought to consider here. We talked earlier about the World Health Organization guidelines.
Right, the media rules.
Those guidelines strictly warn that certain types of media coverage can create contagion or copycat behavior among vulnerable people by normalizing a tragic act. They worry that sensationalizing a death, particularly one involving substance abuse, will cause others in a state of crisis to mimic the behavior.
Right, it's a well-documented idea that irresponsible media coverage itself is physically dangerous to the public.
But what if we flip that concept? What if the true contagion isn't just the tragic act itself?
Okay, I'm listening.
What if the contagion is the public's insatiable, completely normalized appetite to consume a family's darkest moments as reality entertainment? We treat public figures as public property, and we extend that ownership even into their death.
Wow, that's heavy.
So when a star dies, does our relentless, feverish demand for answers, for statements, for clear-cut villains actually prevent the family from surviving the grief? By turning Lesley Vogel's palpable pain and maternal guilt into a morning show talking point, we aren't just reporting on a tragedy, we're actively extending it.
That's a really powerful point.
It's something for you to mull over next time a breaking news alert pops up on your phone, demanding your attention about a celebrity's worst day. What is your role as a consumer of pop culture when the cameras flash and the crowd freezes?
You've been listening to StarScope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.